Hello to all you beautiful people of the internet. Welcome to another Gator Profile, and this time we're looking at Brian Blake, whom people may know as either Philip Blake or the Governor. He is male, his hair is black, he is aged 35. Before the apocalypse, he was a former entrepreneur, and after the apocalypse, he was the former leader of Woodbury and the army. Before the apocalypse in Waynesboro, Georgia, Brian was born in 1968 to Rose and Ed Blake. He grew up in the shabby little in the shabby little bungalow on Farrell Street with his parents and younger brother Philip, who used to share the bunk bed of the back bedroom and pass the late night whispers with him. Although he's 3 years older than his brother, he has been the runt of the siblings. He relied on him for protection since he was young, such as at the crosswalk, holding his hand every morning as a grade school kid at Berg County Elementary, who used to avoid bullies on the playground. During 6th grade, his class took him on a field trip at the Turner County Stockyards outside Ashburn, Georgia. The black greasy stench at the abattoir floor on the abattoir floor of the place was incredible to him. In 1981, when he was around 13, his mum took him and his brother to the Burnham and Bailey Circus in Athens. The boys revelled in the circus shows and performances, which consisted of the haywire acts, the tigers jumping through the flaming rings, the men shooting out of cannons, the acrobats, the elephants, the sideshows, the sword swallower, the human dartboard, the fire eaters, the bearded ladies, and the snake charmer, by eating cotton candy. The most vividly memorable thing for him was the goofy clown car pulled out across the centre ring of the height of the show. It was a cartoonish sedan with windows painted in a patchwork of day-glow colours, about the size of a station wagon, built to the low ground. He laughed his head off at the clowns piling out of the car, one after another. How at first it was just funny, but became amazing, and finally downright bizarre, because they kept coming out 6, 8, 10, and 20, big ones, little ones, keep climbing out of the car as though it was a magic container of freeze-dried themselves, making them transfixed by this gag, knowing full well there had to be a trick to it. Maybe a trapdoor embezzle in the sawdust beneath the car, but it didn't matter because their sight of it was mesmerizing. He also took epic journeys into the woods and overnight stays in pup tents and cabins with his brother, including an ill-fated Appalachian camping trip, which they secretly had their first beers. In 1986, at age 18, he visited the nursing home in Waynesboro to say goodbye to his dying grandmother. He never forgot the look on her caretaker's face. On an almost hourly basis, the male nurse had to clean the excrement from the lady's backside. An expression on his face as he did so, with relatives in the room, was a horrible mix of disgust, stoic professionalism, pity, and contempt. I can't say professionalism properly. In Athens, Georgia, during his student years, he studied poems in his 20th century comparative literature class of the University of Georgia and earned his degree. It had done a lot of good to him to know several poets and their famous words. Sorry, I've just woken up. He also learned about the history of Atlanta in a survey course. During Reconstruction, after Sherman had torched the place, the planners decided to let the old historic landmarks go the way of the dodo bird. And over the next century and a half, Atlanta got tarted up in steel glass. Unlike other southern towns like Savannah and New Orleans, where the flavor of the Old South still proudly permeates, Atlanta turned to the blind services of modern expressionism. As an adult, he started several harebrained business schemes, financing most of them with his parents' money, which all ended up crashing and burning. He was intelligent but unable to harness his wits among anything productive. Still, he had a dream of opening a music store. He has a vast knowledge of music, attending Kid Rock tour and his share of concerts in Atlanta, the Civic Center, the Earl, the Georgia Dome, and the Fox Theater, and usually wearing band t-shirts, Rem and Weezer among them. He came up with the idea of a music shop catered to hip-hop artists with refurbished turntables, used bass cabinets, and gaudy microphones festooned with Snoop Dogg bling, but it also scrapped as there was already one in every corner. In the early 2000s, he married a Jamaican woman named Jocelyn. That name sounds familiar. And lived in a tenement building. During their married life, he had been to New York City once visiting her family, and that vast, grimy, claustrophobic ant farm had seemed like a real city. However, the relationship was so bad that she would act irrationally or nuts, vanishing without a trace for weeks. One time, while he was at night school, she put all his stuff on the stairs of that tenement, as though she was removing a stain from her life. They eventually divorced after a brief marriage. He didn't lawyer up, and I had to listen to all those hurtful things from her. And in Deering, Georgia, in 2003, after divorcing Jocelyn, he decided to live with his parents and move back home where they all were. Again, as I said before, I'm not going to read the comic storyline. You're going to read that yourselves if you want to know that story. In the volume The Best Defense, when Rick Grimes, Glenn Rhee, and Michonne Hawthorne reach Woodbury, Martinez hands them over to the governor. The governor appears friendly at first, but soon reveals that he intends to feed them to the Woodbury's group of captive zombies if they don't tell him where they've been hiding out. Rick, Glenn, and Michonne continually refuse to disclose this information to the governor, frustrated over their lack of cooperation. The governor cuts off Rick's hand to try and intimidate him into giving up the location of the base camp. Seeing the governor's horrific act, Michonne retaliates by biting off a portion of his ear. After Bruce pries Michonne off him, the governor has Michonne and Glenn locked away and sends an unconscious Rick to the infirmary. Awfully nice of him. After having his injury treated by Stevens, who we covered, the governor has informed Bruce that Michonne is ready for interrogation when he wants to proceed. The governor asks Bruce to immediately show him to Michonne's location so they can begin. After getting Bruce to tie Michonne's legs to the walls, the governor proceeds to torture Michonne. After finishing up with Michonne, the governor informs her that he will be back to continue torturing her later, before heading out to his apartment. After he arrives, he is rushed by Penny and retaliates by giving his zombified niece a backhand. The governor apologizes for his actions and notices that Penny has knocked over her food bucket, fixing it for her. Afterwards, he is visited by Gabe, who gives the governor the items he wanted brought to him earlier, including Rick's hand and the zombified heads of some of his victims. The governor feeds Rick's hand to Penny before adding the zombified heads to his collection of them contained in fish tanks. I would have felt sorry for the governor if he wasn't such a goddamn evil man. Try to keep this as PG as possible, sorry. Much later, the governor begins to interrogate Glenn. After Glenn refuses to give in to his demands, the governor has him moved to a cell. Sorry about that. To a cell adjoining Michonne's cell. so he can listen to the screams while the governor tortures her. After finishing up with Glenn, the governor resumes his torture of Michonne once again and beating her, all while Glenn is forced to listen to the adjoining room. After finishing his torture of Michonne, Glenn heads over to Woodbury's clinic to see how Rick is recovering from the loss of his hand. When he arrives, the governor informs Rick that he will be fighting in the Woodbury arena as soon as he has fully recovered, and lies by telling Rick that he has let Glenn go free. Rick asks him why would he do such a thing. The governor responds by telling him that Glenn told him everything about his group, including that they were based in a nearby prison, horrifying Rick. The governor then leaves the speechless Rick to himself in the clinic and discusses his strategy with Bruce and Gabe outside by telling his men they didn't think Rick fell for it. However, the governor tells him both he definitely did, saying the expression on Rick's face was more than enough of a giveaway to indicate that his group is indeed based at a nearby prison. In the volume This Sorrowful Life, the governor later pays another visit to Michonne's holding cell. While he is there, instead of torturing her, he gives her a choice to make. The governor tells her that if she replaces one of his arena fighters who was murdered in an upcoming arena fight, he may help her, suggesting a bullet to her head would be his way of saying thanks. If she were to say no, her torture would continue for each day until she could find a way to. The governor also informs her that he will even let her use the katana she wields in the area, and then leaves, telling her she has 20 minutes to decide upon her answer. Michonne eventually agrees with the governor's idea and enters the arena to fight against one of the regular fighters, Eugene Cooney. Much to the governor and the people of Woodbury's surprise, Michonne decapitates Eugene once the fight starts and kills all of Woodbury's captive zombies. She is eventually subdued by Bruce and Gabe, and the governor, in a rage, almost kills her, but relents at the last second. During this time, the governor also has Martinez help Rick and his other group members escape, so that they may reveal to the location of the prison to him. After arriving back at his apartment in order to feed Penny parts of Eugene's corpse, he is ambushed by Michonne, having been freed by Rick and Glenn during their escape with Martinez, Stevens, and Alice. The two have a brief standoff before scrambling over Michonne's sword. Michonne manages to gain the upper hand and knock the governor unconscious, then proceeding to strip him naked and tie him to his apartment whilst ready for torture. From there, she proceeded to graphically torture the governor until near death, drilling into his shoulder blades, nailing his manly thing to the wooden flooring, shoving a spoon into his something, gouging his left eye, nearly severing an artery, pulling out his fingernails and cutting off his right arm. Yeah, this ain't PG, sorry. Michonne relented upon taking his life, however, wanting the eventual chance to meet and torture him again. Not before long, Bruce and Gabe almost catch her in the governor's apartment, Michonne escaping just before they could. Not knowing what to do in the light of Stephen's death and Alice leaving Woodbury, Bruce and Gabe have Woodbury's drunk town medic, Bob Stuckey, begin to work on healing the governor's grievous wounds. In the volume The Calm Before, after eventually healing from his wounds sustained by Michonne, the governor discovers the location of and recruits almost everyone from Woodbury to launch an attack on it. He and many citizens from Woodbury drive an armada of vehicles, including a tank, towards the prison, and the governor orders his men to kill them all. In the volume Made to Suffer, in a flashback shown in issue 43, the governor is shown still recovering from the wounds he suffered at the hands of Michonne. It is during this recovery that he is informed by Bruce of Martinez's death at the hands of the prison group, having uncovered the governor's plot of using Martinez to spy on them sometime earlier. The governor has Bruce recover Martinez's body and remove the animated head from his corpse, which he presents to the people of Woodbury during one of his speeches in order to rally them to his side against the prison group. During the time Woodbury was searching for the group of the prison, the governor uses a tooth plier to remove Penny's teeth, rendering her unable to bite him. With her found state of harmlessness, the governor kisses his zombified niece, only to vomit seconds later from the repulsive taste, apologizing to Penny for his actions. I mean, yeah, what else would you get from kissing a zombie? Gross, dude. Moments later, Gabe informs the governor of an explosion and sounds of gunfire nearby Woodbury, also telling him that Bruce and 3 other men went to investigate the explosion. The governor, believing the prison group were responsible, orders Gabe and a few other men to accompany him to the explosion's location. When the governor, Gabe, and the other men arrive, they find that Bruce and the other Woodbury soldiers have been killed by the prison group. Bruce confirming this in his dying moments. The governor shoots Bruce in the head to prevent him from reanimating, and immediately orders Gabe to follow the prison group's tracks so that they may finally discover the prison's location. Gabe returns to the governor later that day at Woodbury and informs him that they now know the location of the prison, demanding they go and attack now. The governor berates him for this strategy, saying their guard will still be up after the shootout with Bruce and the others, making an attack against the prison foolish. After many weeks of waiting and amassing supplies, the governor decides to attack the prison, leaving Bob to guard Penny before he makes one last speech to the Woodbury army and travels with them towards the prison. Once the governor and his army arrive at the prison, he orders them to kill them all before they open fire on the prison. After his army unloads a rally of bullets at the prison, the governor orders them to cease fire. He gives the prison group one last chance to make it easy on themselves and orders the survivors to surrender their weapons and ammo outside the innermost gates. When he doesn't get a response, he orders the soldiers to resume firing when a .308 caliber Winchester zipper fired by a military-grade sniper rifle strikes him in his armored shoulder. The distance the bullet travelled means it merely punctured a deep pucker in the Kevlar. That feels to the governor as though he had just been punched by Mike Tyson. You don't want to be punched by that guy. The shock of the impact sends him falling backwards off the edge of the tank. Noticing that the prison group is using a wall of zombies to surround the prison's fences, the governor devises that while they may not know how to fire a tank, they can use it to clear the amount of zombies around the fences. Still losing too many of his men at the hands of Andrea in the prison guard's tower, the governor is forced to retreat from the prison and regroup with his forces. While devising a new plan of attack against the prison, Gabe brings the captured Tyrese to the governor, telling him that they caught him in the woods after he and Michonne had killed three Woodbury soldiers. The governor demands Gabe tell him what happened to Michonne, and he informs the governor that he blew her brains out. Gabe then presents the governor with Michonne's sword as proof of this. The governor is still skeptical despite the proof. After briefly interrogating Tyrese, the governor decides he has no further uses for him and is bound and placed inside one of Woodbury's trucks for transport back to the prison. When the governor arrives at the prison, he immediately hails the group's attention and presents them a bound and gagged Tyrese from outside the prison's fences. The governor demands the prison group surrender in exchange for Tyrese's life, but they refuse, knowing full well the governor plans to kill them no matter what. Frustrated over the prison group's decision, The governor uses Michonne's katana to gruesomely decapitate Tyrese in front of the prison group before hastily retreating back to the rest of his men. Back to the Woodbury camp near the prison, the governor is ambushed by a surviving Michonne, holding him at gunpoint before the rest of his men. Gabe fires off a shot and quickly tries to move out of the way, causing the shot to pierce through the governor's face, inflicting a minor wound. Unable to locate Michonne and out of time to devise another plan of attack on the prison, the governor rallies his surviving people for one final attack. Once the final attack on the prison begins, the governor's forces are met with harsh resistance from the prison group, with Gabe being killed almost as soon as the attack starts. Feeling he is losing too many men, the governor resorts to desperate tactics and uses Woodbury's tank to ram through the prison fences, allowing both his men and dozens of zombies access to inside the prison. The governor and his men quickly begin to kill members of the prison group, with the governor personally finishing off a wounded Alice. The governor orders Lily Cole to fire upon Laurie Grimes, and she does so with the shot, instantly killing her. The governor then proceeds to finish off Ursula Green, who begs him to end his life after the death of Billy Green. Lily then begins to frantically panic, realizing she also killed Judith Grimes after shooting Laurie. This causes her to hold the governor at gunpoint, but not before a large group of zombies knock her focus off him, and he manages to disarm her rifle. The governor then tries to rally his people to follow him to fight off the zombie horde, but Lily pulls out her pistol and shoots him in the back of the head instead, kicking his still living body into the zombie horde not moments after to allow herself and the other surviving Woodbury soldiers time to escape. With Brian's death, his madness as the governor is finally put to an end, avenging the deaths of everyone at the prison and allowing the citizens of Woodbury to live in peace, allegedly. And in the volume Life Among Us, Brian appears in a flashback where he holds Michonne's katana before decapitating Tyrese. It's like, really? And fun fact, Robert Kirkman actually regrets killing the governor. And I'm just sitting there like, really? You regret killing that evil man? Why would you regret? And also Brian attempted that he may have attempted cannibalism. And Brian Kissenpenny has also shown that you can't turn by exchanging bodily fluids. Sort of. I mean, I guess blood is fine, you know. Pretty sure you know what I'm talking about. So that is Brian Blake, also known as the Governor. Let me know what you think of this character. Do you think the TV show did him justice, or do you think they should have stuck with the comic version? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you had control over this character's life, what would you do with it? If you like what you see, please leave a like, please subscribe. If you don't like what you see, either leave a dislike or you can go. Have a good day.